well for a fair bit of the time. Does that mean the H's are going to be a double?
Can't we just enjoy this one, Mel, for a little while? So, no doubt there's going to be a quick shift into the Ashes, but the message to the group is enjoy what you've been able to achieve over the last couple of years. It's been a phenomenal stretch for us and highlighted by the win here at the Oval, and there was some tense moments within that and we found our way through, so it was very, very proud of the group.
What do you reckon the key moments were in those 2 years to get to this point?
I mean, you can shrink down series in isolation. You can talk about the subcontinent journey where we went Pakistan into Sri Lanka into India. We had to navigate through that, so it was a tricky World Test Championship cycle. So I think the wins in the subcontinent got us here. We're really strong in Australia, so I think that most people would expect us to be winning Test matches in Australia, but to be able to execute in Pakistan, win a Test match in Sri Lanka, and then to get that win in indoor to secure a place in the final was vitally important to give us this opportunity. And all it was when we come here was an opportunity, and we've been able to take that. So that's, it's a job well done.
Where's this rank, mate? Like, you guys prioritise push Test cricket as the biggest format, the most important formats over a 2-year period. Like, is this up there for the great achievements in Australian cricket to win this trophy?
I think so. It's a new concept, but we're certainly buying into the concept, and I think that was probably on the disappointment of the first couple of years when it was in existence, where we missed out due to overrate. So we've made it a significant focus of ours. Every time we come into a series, we're checking in around where we are. There's a ladder, albeit stretched out over 2 years, which is a little bit different to other sports, but it's high on the priority list, and you put it on the priority list, you want to be here and you want to win it, and that's what we've been able to do. So it's right up there, and if you go into that dressing room right at the moment, there's a lot of happy people about reflecting on what they've been able to achieve over the last 2 years.
You clearly come out on top convincingly. How ready did the team feel, and I guess particularly the bowlers? I mean, Mitch spoke about it the other day that perhaps there was a bit more rust in them than they thought coming into the game. Again, touched on it that everyone got better today. I mean, did you feel ready for this Test match, and to extrapolate that, do you think you're now going to be much better for the run come Friday?
We're ready, and we've been on the record in saying we got the preparation that we needed to counter what's ahead of us over the now 5 Test matches of the Ashes. So there's always going to be some execution points where you think you can improve, and I think that Test match looked like most other Test matches where teams were put under pressure. They didn't quite execute at certain times, but were able to navigate our way through those tricky situations. So to me, that's attached to your preparation, and it's up for you guys to critique what the performance was like and whether we can sit here and tell you our preparation's good. Whether you believe that or not, I suppose, plays out, and it's played out over the 5 days, so I'll leave that up for you to judge.
So how much of the preparation that you did for this can you overlay into what's to come, like different opponent, but similar conditions, circumstances, games is apply?
The conditions in the ball apply. Outside of that, they're a totally different team. So we'll get back to work. Probably the next 24 hours, we'll switch our focus, as you will, in what you do, to the Ashes in the first Test. So we can't wait for it to come around. First point was the World Test Championship final. Let's enjoy what the team's been able to achieve over the last couple of years, and then, get excited about Edgbaston Ball 1.
Did you go for more runs in this Test at a quicker rate than
We're expecting to go. Like the squares, I mean, you look at the Oval, the square goes from one side of the ground to the other, so the run rate's always going to be slightly higher. We felt that both batting groups did an incredible job to prosper on the wicket. It had enough in it for the bowling units, but every time you missed, it was a boundary. So one thing that we've got to factor into England is how we deny them those boundaries. So there's a couple of things that we can potentially tidy up and take from this game into the next one, but different opponent, so we'll get back to the drawing board around that.
So with that in mind, does your criteria for 3 fast bowlers, if you're presuming you pick 3 fast bowlers, everyone's going to ask you,
Yeah.
what's the criteria?
First and foremost, we've got to see how our fast bowlers pull up tomorrow, and we'll go through the usual check-in, see where they're at. It's a relatively short turnaround, something that's not unusual, 4 days. We'll assess the bodies in the morning. We'll get to work at what we think is the right attack and right balance, and then we've got to factor in also that there's 5 Test matches as well, so we've got to balance that across the entire summer. So it's not going to be as simple as this is a one-off game, we're going to push everything into this. We'll pick our best attack at that point in time for the conditions and the opponent. So we've got a bit to assess when we get to Edgbaston.
And presuming they are all fit, Andrew probably kind of hopeful wants to, is someone like a Mitchell Stark, he still kind of holds some value given, he might go for a few more runs, but maybe more of a taking a threat.
There's always balance of attack. So what we value at that point in time, it's no different to any team that you pick at any point in time. We value Mitch and what he's been able to do, but we also value Scott, Josh. Paddy's clearly an automatic pick being the captain, and then you've got Nathan Lyon and Cameron Green in and around that. So we feel as though we've got really good coverage, and we've got some people that here play county cricket if anything should go wrong.
So what do you feel about the fact that Starkey's gone for well over 5 and over, and Baswell hasn't started yet? And obviously England are going to come after him. They're going to come after everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, where does he get to a point where you can't let that sort of that run rate sort of explode as it could do?
I think that most of our bowlers went above what they usually go, and we've just got to get our heads around that the tempo looks slightly different. We're a team that usually goes at around that sort of that high 2 runs per over. Here we've probably got to get our heads around the fact that it could be 4 runs and over, and India showed good intent at certain times, and it was the game when it's high 3s, 4 runs per over. Mitch went at a little bit more than that, so, and he generally across the board goes for a fraction more than the other bowlers, and they complement each other really, really well. His wicket taking ability is second to none, so we've got to weigh all that up when we make decisions. But yeah, it's not a concern, because we know that what we're in for in the summer is going to be slightly higher RPO, and that's because of the grounds and the surfaces.
Travis started this cycle with the 100 at the Gabba, he's ended it with the 100 here. Just what's been the key, both in his sort of second coming, I guess, as a test batter, but also that ability to turn those 50-50 scenarios that he's often coming at? 4 or 5 of the innings have been sort of 3 down for tricky positions. What's been the key to him that's allowed him to play that way in those situations?
I think he's got great self-belief, one, and the freedom in which the other batters allow him to play. We've got some real stability in and around him, so that sort of top 5, 6 batting unit, they complement each other, and I think that the way Steve Smith and Marnus play allows Travis to do his job, and vice versa. When Trav goes, it allows the others to sit in, and we saw that great partnership here, 285 runs, and it was different styles, if you want to call it that, and they complemented each other. And Travis puts so much pressure on the opposition bowlers. They bowl good deliveries and they find their way to the boundary. So he's going to be a handful, and he's going from strength to strength. And we always talk about sort of players growing and maturing, but to play that type of game over an extended period of time is amazing, really, and it's super impressive, and full credit to him. And he turned this game on its head, really. Like it was a toss that we wanted to win as well. We felt like there would be enough in it. We felt like batting potentially would get easier across the game, and for him to do what he did along with Steve Smith in that the second half of day one really set up the game and gave us the driver's seat.
How's that balance at the top of the order? Because obviously, like Davey's spoken about the fact that he wants to go after the game, he wants to play run-scoring cricket. We saw in this test, and I'm sure we'll see it all summer, the first hour is really hard to survive against a new ball here. So how do you strike that balance with Aussie?
Well, I don't think survival comes into most batters' minds these days. I think it's about how you're going to score runs and what your method's going to be. So it's assessing the conditions. Clearly, if you bat second, you get a look at the conditions so you can be a little bit more settled. The unknown is really, if you do bat first in a test match, you've got to really compute and assess all those conditions and then work out your method from there. So they've got a great challenge. I mean, last Ashes series, it was, on average, I think it was 2 for 20. So they're going to be challenged again here. There's no doubt about that. But as long as they're clear in their method and the way they want to play, then I think that's the way to get success over 5 test matches.
Do you feel like they got enough out of this test? Like, it felt like everyone else sort of got plenty of time in the middle. I know Dave did a bit the first innings, but like, were they sort of the two that probably didn't get as much out of the test as you would have liked? I'm not saying
they didn't score runs,
no,
so
like,
clearly, that's a...
Yeah, I'm not saying in a critical way, but I mean, it felt like everyone else got time in the middle and in the build-up to an Ashes series where...
I thought Davey moved well in the first innings. I mean, they were testing conditions, and he got strangled down leg side, so you look at that and you say, a little bit of luck there, and potentially that's a bigger score. But the way he moved, the way he played, is exactly what we want. And it was his last 2 years speak for themselves. So there's going to be failure points for any batters across the journey, and he's had one here, but it doesn't mean he's any less prepared or more prepared than what he would have been for the first Ashes test if he had succeeded here.
Do you let the guys have, particularly the quicks, have a drink or two over the next day or two, given how tight the break is, and you want to be able to celebrate, but also know that the recovery is so important?
There's no doubt that they'll celebrate it in their own way, and that'll be an individual approach. There's a big summer ahead, so we'll keep it all in perspective, and no doubt we want to celebrate, but also quickly turn our attention to the Ashes. So there'll be an individual approach like most things.
You quite specifically mentioned Jack Leach before you left Australia, so the role he had played in their bowling setup. Does his absence change things significantly for them, do you think, or potentially?
I think there's a challenge there, isn't there? I mean, Mo hasn't played a red ball game for an extended period of time, so no doubt he'll be prepared. He's had a couple of weeks' notice, but I think Jack Leach has really complemented that attack, and his wicket-taking ability and the way that Ben Stokes has used him has been a little bit more aggressive and reaped some great rewards. So, yeah, it's going to look different with Mo there. Mo's got 190-odd Test wickets as well, strengthened as a lower order. So, yeah, it won't be the same, but, yeah, they'll have to operate fractionally differently, no doubt about that.
There was quite a lot of talk about Cam's short transition from the IPL to this Test match. How encouraged were you then by the time he spent second innings, how the ball came out? Obviously, he's catching at gullies pretty red hot, apart from that simple one he put down. But just more broadly, how encouraged were you of a young player there and how he has transitioned over that 3 or 4 days into Test cricket?
Yeah, I think people look at the time frame from their last game in the format and probably don't appreciate or understand what happens within the IPL as well. So the work that he would have put in terms of his physical preparation, the amount of balls that he bowled, but there's nothing like being on the ground. But there's a lot of work that goes into preparation, and it just doesn't start, gets on a plane from the IPL, comes here and goes, oh, I've got to prepare for the World Test Championship final. So he was very impressive in this game. I thought that his little partnership, when the game was in the balance, to absorb that, didn't go on for a big score, but there's enough there to suggest that he could be a key player in what's about to come.
Given that baseball's coming up, are we likely to see some somewhat unusual fields? Will you push sweepers out early? Will you look to bowl different lines with different blokes in different places?
I think, like any bowling unit, the field is your greatest form of defence. Is it going to change the way we bowl? Potentially not, but the fields that we do have, their batters hit balls in different areas, so in our planning and prep we'll take that into consideration. You saw even today that some people may have been critiquing our sweepers out. We want to control the tempo of the game, and that's something in England I think most teams do, and you look across the journey in most Ashes series, I think that's happened for both teams. So I think that England will employ similar tactics if the wickets are flat, and we'll do the same.
What was prepared to bowl first, Andrew, than you would have been in the past? Like Pat said, he would have done it here. I'm sure that's probably a conversation you had with you guys and thought a lot about it. Something you're going to look at during this session.
Yeah, I think you look at the wicket as it's been prepared a couple of days leading in, and you look at what presents day one, and obviously there's overhead conditions as well. And both captains were going to bowl here, and yeah, I mean, whoever wins the toss has got a decision to make. If the sun comes through and you misread it, then you can be behind the game. So we'll back our judgment when it comes to that, and we've been more prepared to bowl in recent times, so I don't think that's going to change.
What do you consider when you do think about bowling? It's not traditional, the done thing.
Well, I think you consider how difficult 10 wickets may be in the fourth innings of the game versus what happens up front. I think that's your decision point. Or is the wicket going to deteriorate? Will reverse swing come into it? Will spin come into it? And that's the other thing we've got to recognise, that we've got an all-time great spinner in Nathan Lyon, and the fourth innings is when he gets to work and conditions are in his favour. So we've got a lot to weigh up and go through when we make that decision. Here I think it was a clear bowl first wicket. There was enough in it. I think we played extremely well with both Stephen and Travis.
What was behind the decision to have Mitchell Stark be the first change bowler in the second innings?
I think there's a little bit of a theory, whether it's true or not, that the ball, once the lacquer goes off, starts to swing a little bit. We didn't see much swing here, so that was basically the decision around that. Was we thought that it may swing as it gets a little bit older, sort of that 8 over mark, and Scott and Pat find that line of lengthness a little bit more seam early. So nothing to read into that besides a theory around what the ball does, and I don't think we saw that theory come to fruition here, but it may over the next 5 Test matches, who knows.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Thank you.